I was 14 years old, and I had the opportunity of a lifetime. Together with my oldest brother, Christian, we were to travel from our home country in Transylvania, Romania, to Germany. Now, this was Eastern Germany, and I've never been out of the country. Just being in that area, that's where I grew up. So, wow, was I looking forward to that trip. We packed our bags, we had good friends there, so we would stay with them at their homes in different cities like in Dresden, in Berlin, in Leipzig. And having packed everything up, getting our passports ready, getting the train tickets, we hopped on the train. Well, it was a long ride because right there from Romania, Transylvania, through Hungary, through Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, it was still together at that time. And then the Czech Republic, finally, we made it to Germany, Eastern Germany. So being there with friends and exploring, being out there and seeing things I never dreamed of I would be able to see. There came this afternoon that was really rainy. We were out in the middle of town. And I sat down, we had a sandwich there for lunch. And I felt tearing up. I started crying. Now, my oldest brother probably felt like, what am I going to do with him? And he asked me, how can I help? There was not a thing he could have done, just that he would stay with me. There was a longing for home, there was a missing home. I don't know what it was exactly. It's hard to pinpoint. Was it being homesick? Was it just in all the excitement, in all the beauty, in all the opportunity, there was something where my soul was grieving, where I was longing. And the greatest gift that I had was to have my brother right there with me. Now, Susan Cain came out with this book. It's called Bittersweet. And that's what I experienced there, this bittersweet. It wasn't all exciting, all joyful. It wasn't all dark and sad and broken. It was right that in between, that longing, that yearning, that longing for more. And Susan Cain describes that in very different situations how our longing, our wounds, our struggling, and our sorrow can make us whole. They can help us connect with others, and they can help us find beauty. And our role, that's what she says, and what she describes, and what she experienced is that out of the suffering, out of the pain, out of the grieving, out of the longing, we can create something beautiful. That's what she's describing. And I think that's what Leonard Cohen also mentioned when he said there is a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. Without the brokenness, without the hurt, without the sorrow, without that bittersweet, something is missing. Actually, it's right there where Jesus wants to meet us. And it's in this bittersweet situation that Jesus was with his friends. They have been on the mountaintop, all excited. It was like, yay, transfigured. It was like, wow. Then with them, he was in the valley too. One who backstabbed him, who betrayed him, crucified, hung out to dry, kind of everything went up in smokes. They were crushed, the disciples. All their hopes and dreams went up in smoke. And then They're so afraid that they lock the doors, try to protect themselves because they thought, we'll be next, they'll come after us. And Jesus appears in their fears, in their locked doors, behind the locked doors where they're hiding. He appears there, and something changes in them. It's like, wow, the one who was dead is with us. And they're the 40 days of joy, 40 days of exhilaration, 40 days of wow, we're there together, right from Easter until Ascension Sunday. And then it's time to part again, time to say goodbye. And when we do that, that's bittersweet again, when we have to say, we're gonna leave. And Jesus does 3 things with his friends. And these friends were soulmates. They have been through hell and high water together. They've been through the valley. They have been on the mountaintop. It was like they were close like this. So when it was about to go their own way, Jesus to leave them, he did 3 things. First thing is, he blessed them. Anyone remember this? Mr. Spock. That is actually the sign of how blessings were done in old Israel. The laying on of hands from Aaron, the priestly blessing, was that it's not our blessing, we channel God's blessing. God's blessings are to go through our hands. And it is, Leonard Nimoy, by the way, was Jewish, and he came up with the Vulcan salute as a symbol of that. And in Hebrew, it's a reflection of the letter sh, Shin, which stands for Shaddai, the Almighty. It stands for the Shekinah, the presence of God, the Spirit of God that moves around, and it stands for Shalom, for peace. Jesus blesses them. And isn't that one of the great, great things we can do whenever we part? Blessing. The second thing that Jesus does is he opens their minds to understand scriptures. And I think it's one of the greatest, greatest gifts we will ever can have is to remain curious. Remain open, remain perceptive. The love of learning, we're never done. Even after we got our degrees, we're never done. But this curiosity, I think there is something about Jesus saying, become like children because of this curiosity, about this trust, the deep trust of being open, being perceptive, because when we think we got it all, that's when we're missing the point. When we think we know it all, that's when we're missing it. And the third thing that Jesus does is he sets them free. Whatever was weighing on them, whatever they were frustrated with, it's one of the greatest gifts we can give to each other, to set each other free. Some of the hardest words that we can express is, I'm sorry, I hurt you, please forgive me. Hardest words. I grew up, don't ever admit guilt. It's kind of, it just happened. It broke. It whatever. But to recognize there is limitations in us, we hurt each other, it makes us human. And when we do that, when we open up, when we show ourselves to be vulnerable and in need of grace and of forgiveness. That sets us free. And Jesus tells them, that's how you can live, and that's how you ought to live. Bittersweet, isn't it, when we say goodbye? Bittersweet when we look at the mountaintop, when we are exhilarated, and when from there the journey goes where we part. But it is in that bittersweetness that some love can be born. And it is so interesting. You know the bittersweet music, the sad music? It's good for the soul. Some people think like, if I listen to that blues music, or when it is this adagio in G minor, or when it is kind of, you think it's bad for you because it makes you sad. Actually, the opposite happens. It's healing, it's good for your soul. I remember our son Max one day coming home from school, slamming the door, turning up loud the music. I had a bad day, I had a bad day, I had a bad day, the music. I could hear it in the whole house. Good. To feel it, to experience it, to be right there. There was this master, teacher, music teacher. He had many, many students come to him. They were young, freshmen, sophomore in college. And they always asked him, how did I play? And they were incredibly skilled. They just played perfect music, just everything that was printed, perfect music, very accurate. And the master said, you played good music. You played it perfectly, the piece. The next one came. And they always were missing, why am I playing good music? Why do I play perfect music? When will you tell me I'm playing great music? He said, you can play great music when your heart has been broken, when you know what suffering is like. That's when you can play soulful music. My invitation to you is, don't run from bittersweet. Go into it, because that's where Jesus wants to bless us, wants to set us free. That's where Jesus wants to meet us.